Hello, hello, welcome. Gonna give it a few more seconds to make sure that everyone has a chance to log on. And as you're all getting settled with whatever you need, I will just remind you all that this is for prospective students and that we are so happy to take any questions that you have in the comment section. Awesome. Okay, I think we'll get started. Hi, everyone. Welcome. So nice to see you all in 2026. My name is Chrissy Delore. I use she, her pronouns, and I am the Senior Associate Director of Marketing, Recruiting, and Communications for the Executive Degree Programs team at MIT Sloan. So today's AMA on LinkedIn is designed for prospective students, especially any founders, aspiring founders, and entrepreneurial leaders who are exploring the MIT Executive MBA, EMBA program. We'll talk about how the MIT EMBA develops entrepreneurial thinkers and equips leaders to innovate inside organizations or launch ventures of their own. And I'm thrilled that we'll be joined by Mick Oppie, EMBA 19, who is an entrepreneur, founder, and an MIT Sloan alum from our program, who will share both his journey as a builder and how the EMBA shaped his ability to scale ideas, teams, and impact. So again, just a reminder that you can drop in any questions that you have about the program for Mick in that comment section. Like I always start these events, I'll go through a quick overview of what our program looks like. So when it comes to the schedule, the MIT EMBA is a 20-month program delivered over 26 weekends. While most sessions, including our 4-module weeks, are in person, we're also piloting a small number of virtual class weekends across the 5 terms for some added flexibility. Just so you know, Fridays and Saturdays are full class days spaced every 2 to 3 weeks. Students may also miss up to 2 days per semester with our updated attendance policy. We know that things happen. So like I said, we have 4 one-week-long modules that are integrated throughout the program, including the opening and closing weeks of the program. And graduates earn the same exact MBA degree as students in our 2-year MBA program, as well as our Sloan Fellows MBA program. And our Sloan Fellows is our 1-year full-time program. So everything that we do at MIT is rooted in action learning, which really lends itself to MIT's Mens et Manus, mind in hand philosophy. So the idea is that you'll bring real organizational or entrepreneurial challenges into the classroom and immediately apply what you learn once you return back to work on Monday. Who knows, you might be kind of setting those ideas in motion on Fridays when you're in class. Courses are taught by senior MIT Sloan faculty researchers, innovators, and leaders shaping their fields. And our faculty really, truly do see EMBA students as peers, which enhances the discussion and accelerates the learning in the classroom. So our students bring a bunch of different backgrounds, industries, and perspectives. So here's just a little snapshot of what the class of 2026 or second years look like. So 65% of them join us from outside of Massachusetts, so they are traveling in for those weekends. 76% are director level and above, and all of them, so 100%, are employed, which is a requirement for admission. And so there is so much more that we can say about the EMBA experience, and I'm really excited to bring in someone who has lived it, and it has helped shape his entrepreneurial trajectory throughout the program. Hello, Mick.
Good afternoon.
Hello.
Hey, Chrissy.
Good to see you. So for everyone at home, can you quickly introduce yourself, talk about your current role, and maybe we can start with, where were you at in your career when you decided to look into EMBA programs? And just a quick reminder before you get started to drop any questions that you have in the chat for us, and we'll get to as many as we can.
I love it. Well, it's great to meet you all. I'm Mick Oppie, CEO and a co-founder of a company called Neural Payments. When I joined the EMBA program, I worked for a processing company as a kind of a director level product manager. So all of issuing products for this company rolled up to me. And I enrolled because I really wanted to push my career. I was middle management, I felt, and thought my only way to get to the C-suite was maybe to get some, not just academic backing, but a broader understanding, so that I could be equipped to kind of or feel prepared to be in that room. But ultimately, I ended up starting Neural, which was an idea that came during the program.
Awesome. So what about the MIT EMBA specifically resonated with you when you were looking at other, maybe, doing your research, starting to apply? Why did you choose us?
That's a great question. So I think for me, part of it was always just the nerdy guy that I am, who doesn't dream of going to MIT. That was part of it for sure. As I looked into the curriculum, though, system dynamics, the quantitative side, really spoke to me that, like, hey, I need help in pushing in those areas. And then the faculty, the professors, just the quality of the faculty also for me was like, hey, these are the types of people. My first interactions with a Roberto or Nelson, like I just felt very connected very quickly in terms of wanting to be a part of that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think especially too, again, the fact that our faculty do see you all as, you're as industry experts in your respective peers. And so I can imagine that, and this is something that I always tell people, that while, the core curriculum, it is what it is. And you're moving through all of your courses, your module weeks, the same way as everybody else did in the past, but you all in the classroom are bringing in everything that new that you're working on in real time to the classroom, right? And so
Yeah.
I imagine that, faculty are also serve as thought leaders and partners in a way, for the problems that you're trying to solve. And I guess, like, was there something that you were looking to solve in your organization that sparked the idea for neural payments?
So it's, man, the mind and hand, like the mens at manus. I didn't realize that until I was in the program, that was really true. Of, you learn the theories and you learn the core of these large, like the true academic, where some of these concepts came from. But then the demand is that I go and take that to work and actually apply it in a project, apply it on a product, try something new, was very apparent and required, quite honestly, as part of the coursework. I didn't know that going in. Had I known that, it would have been a no-brainer. But it absolutely was what ended up happening. That the entrepreneurial side, although always something in the back of my mind when I did my interview, I talked about someday I will hopefully start a company. It wasn't meant to be part of my journey, but the confidence and the classwork led to clearly what seemed like an obvious step for me, which was to start a company. So,
yeah, this actually leads really nicely to a question that we just got from Tarashand. What led to transformation from senior leadership to your entrepreneurship journey at the EMBA program? Like, do you remember a moment where things maybe clicked? Was it a series of events that just fell into place? Also, you met your co-founder here, so we can get into that in a little bit. But yeah, like I guess kind of like walk us through it.
Yeah, no, that's great. I during the journey, I was learning. You learn a lot about what your strengths are. You're in a room with, you're constantly in a room full of overachievers or brilliant minds, and so the imposter syndrome is there a little bit. But ultimately, you find like where you add value and why you add value. And I think as you learn more about yourself, then these classes resonate with you in a little different way. For me specifically, it was Idea Week, where we had to present an idea, and my idea was called Neural Payments. So my company was based on an idea that happened during Idea Week. And the transformative part wasn't that it was my idea, it was the process during the week, and then the feedback loop from people now that I trust and I respect of, Mick, this could be real. You should think about this. Mick, why aren't you doing this? Have you done this? Like, it just created a whole new set of conversations that then I obviously had to take home and analyze and sit with for what ultimately is another year. well after I graduated, before we started Neural. So I don't know if
That's
that
awesome.
helps. Hopefully that helps.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, if I'm thinking about that process, what was there any hesitation to maybe venture on your own, even though obviously this
Yeah.
is such an environment where people are super excited to build new things and create new things, right? But was there any hesitancy, or like, how are you maybe navigating those more complex
I
thoughts?
think it's great because you can lean on your classmates. There are other entrepreneurs that have done it. So that's one. And I was very lucky to have a couple of those. And in fact, two of two of those people are on my board now. So the ability to lean on those classmates, but you're also then able to have conversations of like, I have to pay the bills. I have a wife and I have 3 daughters and I got to take care of them. And so the balance of when and how and those complexities, again, you're with people that are in kind of the same career and kind of life, that those conversations, they understand where you're at. And so then it's a journey, right? You just kind of saying, well, what are these barriers? And at any point, it might just be, no, I need to stay in the environment I'm in. And I'm about to have a degree from MIT. So
Yeah.
clearly I should be able to get another, if I want to try something else or push, I should be able to apply and get another job as well. That's why it took me, again, well over a year. It wasn't like I had to immediately make this gut-wrenching decision. It took quite a while for me to, but then I started using classwork. So again, the beauty of the classwork is you have to apply it to something. So whether you're applying it to a startup idea or to your existing work, it's a mandate of the program, really. So I was using classwork to then vet these barriers and figure out if there really was an opportunity to start the company.
Yeah. So you mentioned Idea Week, which is one of our modules. Idea Week is also coming up next month. So can you actually talk a little bit more about just like what does Idea Week look like for students while they're here, and maybe what lessons did you learn to again, like, help develop neural payments?
Yeah, Idea Week is still amazing in terms of anyone can pitch an idea. And you want to try to come up with an idea that's either personal to you or a passion project, and you form groups around that. And then the whole goal of the week is to really try to take it through its paces and figure out if there is a market, is there a product, how would you do it, what would it look like? I mean, you're planning that every idea is a unicorn. It's going to succeed, and you want that. And then at the end of the week, there's kind of this healthy competition around pitching your company as if you're in front of a bunch of VCs trying to raise money. So it's even if it's not your idea, the ability to join a team and add value and be part of the process, I think, is extremely valuable. On my team, I had an anesthesiologist, I had a VC from Spain, I had a founder that had IPO'd and sold his company. Like, we really did have this crazy group that was able to just really, all these perspectives helped to make it just such I couldn't even, we don't have enough time to write all the things I learned that week. But I mean, that was what Idea Week is. And it was really, really fun to pitch at the end of that.
Yeah, and this is a question that that comes up sometimes during interviews. So we're also right in the middle of interview season, right? And people do ask about the groups, what they look like. And Mick, you essentially described what an ideal group looks like, where it is, however many people from completely different organizations, functions, industries, role titles, and you all sit at different levels in your organization. But I think there is, and you obviously have experience, there's so much value in being able to learn from people who think completely differently from you, people that you likely would not have met in the wild if it weren't for this program, that then could lead to that viable idea that can take off and develop into something more. And that's really, really awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, it was great. The feedback after as well. One of my dear friends. She's in California and is so logical and just brilliant. And I'm a very emotional, outgoing, and her hard questions around, are you really going to do this? And what about these things? And just again, helping me through the thought process was phenomenal. And she was not an entrepreneur, but her guidance and questions were amazing to me.
Yeah, that's awesome. We did get another question in LinkedIn that I wanted to ask about. Yeah, was there a specific framework that was helpful for you
Mm,
to apply straight to work? And
yeah.
I would say, maybe twofold, considering that you were working at a different company before you started
Yeah.
the company.
Yeah.
Like,
So there,
what were you bringing back to your job?
yeah, there's a great one, and now Nelson has a book out about it. But System Dynamics was very transformative for me, and a very practical place where we learned about combining these management practices with the action of doing and making projects and processes more efficient. And we had to basically try a project at work. So it was like, here's this framework around organizing and prioritizing that's not your typical way of thinking, and we want you to try it. And so we used it. We went back and redid our entire backlog of products and features, and took this framework and applied it. And it was amazing to see people that had no exposure to MIT being impacted by what I was learning, and changing the actual process at work of how we develop products for the company I was at.
I love that. And that is one of the things that as an interviewer, I always touch upon in the interview process, right? When someone's sitting across from me and I'm asking them, why MIT? Like, why is now the time? But also, this is that opportunity for you to think about who then is filling in for you when you are on campus Fridays and Saturdays for your class weekends. This is an opportunity for someone to take on more leadership goals. And so, and then of course, like you said, you're bringing back these frameworks to your teams, to the organization. So that ripple effect is so real. And I think it's awesome that, like, well, yes, like, you are putting in the work to get a degree from MIT. There are other people that get to benefit from that. And I think too, if we're talking about stakeholders, you mentioned your family earlier. Like, if I'm gonna, again, now that we're in admissions season, what was it like having to get
Mm.
buy-in both from your team at work, from anyone at home, as you're thinking about, okay, like, I'm now going to add on some work, plus travel, to my probably already busy lifestyle. Can you share a little bit of what those conversations look like?
Yeah, I mean, they're tough, right? You have a stable job, you're taking care of your family, and then you come home and say, "Hey, I want to try to start something brand new," and there's a high likelihood it could fail. Like, how do you walk that journey? And for me, it was, how can I explain de-risking? How can I show that I'm going to de-risk this as much as I can? And ultimately, if it does fail, which again, high likelihood it does, I'll get us, like, the degree helps me to
Mhm.
make sure that I am employable after the fact. So I'm staying in my same basic, industry. I'm just going to start something brand new. And if it fails, I'll take those learnings and I'll jump back into the large, corporate life that I was leaving. But I used that year to really begin have those conversations around de-risk, de-risk, de-risk. Healthcare. How am I going to take care of the healthcare situations? How am I going to pay the bills? How are we going to, and what are the decision points to say, if it's not going to work, I've drawn these clear lines and I have accountability with the people that are doing this journey with me to say, we both agree, if we hit this, we're out, we're done, we're shutting it down. So I think really just creating the boundaries and making sure everyone understood the boundaries, is ultimately what made the risk feel like it was just a step and not some massive, close my eyes and jump as far as I can and hope that I land. That was not the approach I took.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think too, when it comes to getting buy-in, we are so intentional about making sure that for whatever class that we are, in the season of recruiting for, and especially like with events, like we have that program scheduled ready for you. So you have an idea of like exactly when you
Yep.
will be on campus, when your module weeks will be, when orientation is, when commencement likely
Mm.
will be. Because we want those conversations that you all are having with folks at work, folks at home, as you are thinking about, what a schedule looks like for yourself. If you're really only accountable to yourself, right? Helping you navigate the planning of that. And so Mick, you were commuting in. Can you talk a little bit about that process, in terms of how did you figure what schedule worked like for you? How did you squeeze in, you know, doing your readings or
Whew.
work, like maybe also the group work? I know that is something that gets asked. How do you
Oh yeah.
figure out where the time goes for all of these things?
Yeah, I love it. So when I did the program, I had a 5-year-old, a 7-year-old, and a 9-year-old.
Mm,
And so there was a lot of negotiation around dad's going to miss this dance recital. Um, can we do ice cream before I leave? Can you do if we play the music, will you perform? I remember going to one of my daughter's school and like watching their dress rehearsal at school because I was going to miss it. So I think just being proactive about being dad and husband was super important to make sure, because time is valuable and it's about to get really stretched. It has forever changed how we do vacation because at that point, I wanted to just have some downtime. So any break that we got, I didn't want to, I just wanted downtime. And so my family was very accommodating about that. But I think
mhm.
balancing that schedule was really about negotiating what's fair and making those trades with my kiddos. I will tell you, one of the cool things is they started to start companies after we did this as well. Like they've started their own little companies a couple times. So it's really neat to watch them be inspired by that. When they come on campus for that family weekend, one of
Yep.
my daughters, one of our classmates worked for NASA, and this kind classmate told her that NASA needs her. And I will tell you, she's still pursuing trying to work at NASA someday. So these life-changing moments were really neat, and it was about balancing that schedule. And then during work or during your class time, there will be periods where you're leaning on your classmates to help a little bit. I have this massive thing due at work. I'm not going to be able to contribute as much as I would like to the group project. Everybody just kind of rallies around you because they've been there themselves. So at some point during the program, I think the grace that is given of like, we get, you have life, is very much there. And everybody just rallies around you to kind of help you out, because at some point you're going to be the one leading and saying, hey, I got this. Hey, this is an area I'm very comfortable. I'll help push on the project and make sure it gets done. So the groups were great, and that they changed to make sure you're meeting new people in your group so you don't just get stuck in one lane.
Mhm.
But I have so many dear friends from the program still to this day.
Yeah, I love that you brought up Family Weekend. It's personally one of my favorite weekends to be on campus for, whether I'm staffed or not. And so, for just a little bit more context, this typically happens in July. We have been blessed, knocking on wood here, to have had really awesome weather every year since I've been here, at least staffing it. And we essentially turn campus into a little carnival. We have a green area on campus outside. We have a lot of fun food one of those days. And so while you all are in classes, we are also scheduling, very fun tours across Cambridge or Boston, where they can walk around, get to learn a little bit more about the New England culture here, which is especially fun if they're, if you got any international folks, right? Or people that maybe have never been to the East Coast. One of my favorite lines, this was in the summer of 23. Maybe summer of 22. It was my very first family weekend that I staffed. And I was at the swag table, handing out a bunch of swag to all the kiddos. And someone came up to me, one of the students came up to me and said, I don't know what you all do here, but my mother now has more friends than I do with everybody else, with everybody else's family. And I really truly believe that is such a testament to the way that our team helps create community, but that is also done in partnership with the cohorts too, right? Where there are various ways to, do a little bit more. For example, like we do have Sloan Senate positions that are available where you're interacting a little bit more with all the other senators across all the programs at Sloan. There are just so many different ways for connections to be built. And I think that those connections then extend to then your families, right? I'll just go through the other weekends that we have coming up. In April is Bosses Weekend. So that is an opportunity for you to bring your manager, your boss, a co-founder, what have you, to campus so they can also get a taste of what you're learning and have and better understand how that all the work that you're putting in here is impacting them, right? And their organization and their larger teams. We also have Significant Others Weekend in the fall and in November, and that's adults only. And it also does not have to be a significant other. I know people have brought friends before, but that's just another way where we have like a really nice reception and just again, like more tours, more things for your people to do. And because we know that we're borrowing you for the 20 months, that you're actively a student here. But beyond those 20 months, we hope that you all are, continuing to find a way to be active alum as well. So I guess like that, Mick, do you want to talk a little bit about how you continue to stay involved with our program, with our current students as an alum?
Oh, so on the kind of organic, not formal side, I think the lifelong friendships you make are, it's amazing. So some of my best friends now are in Spain. And I mentioned my friends in California, my friends there in Boston. Like I have so many classmates that I talk to, some almost daily, and others, at least once a month, that we continue to talk. We continue to kind of share in life because it was such this kind of pivotal, journey that we were on for those 26 months. So that part is amazing. I think MIT does a great job if you look for it to stay involved and engaged. I continue to use the January electives, which is an opportunity for us to come back onto campus and take a class for two classes for 4 days, or just one class. Many of us use it as a chance to do mini reunions. Like we all just get together and say, hey, I'm at least coming in on Thursday. And we do a nice dinner. But that classwork is amazing. It gives me a chance. I just did one on AI and money. So that was fascinating. And it was taught by the former, head of the SEC. So kind of an expert. So you have these opportunities to continue to learn on the academic side and be engaged, but also just, I don't know. I still come back and help out at events like these where I can. I help with Idea Week because it was so life-changing for me. I try to come and mentor for that. So I think there's always opportunities if you're looking for them. And once you're inside the community, you have to realize it's a community. And so it's kind of one of these of like, you're in, what do you want to do? How do you want to leverage being part of the community? So I still am very active. I know many of my classmates are as well.
Yeah, for sure. That is for sure something that gets brought up in conversations at events, in interviews, what have you. And my answer to people is there is so much that we have to offer, right? Not just in the program, but at Sloan, and also at MIT, right? We are still part of this larger institution at the end of the day. And, as an EMBA student, you are, you're considered like you're part-time, but you have access to everything. But the onus then is on you to figure out, where you want to put your energy into, like what connections and what relationships are going to be the most critical for you to develop while you're actively a student, because there obviously isn't time for everything. So this is maybe just a note for people as you're thinking about like why MIT, and how you'd like to, like, not just what can you learn or what are you excited to learn here, but also, how can you continue to help our community grow, right? Like, I think it's really twofold. And again, like, it really is so contingent on the people that choose to apply here for the program, because that is the first step. We only admit from the pool that we get. And so our goal is to continue to increase the types of people that we have from all different types of industries. Yes. So another great question that came in the chat. What's the most crucial discovery that you made about yourself as an entrepreneur at the program? And how did the ecosystem at the EMBA program help you with that?
Well, I think we highlighted, or I tried to highlight, like, sure, there's this academic side, but there's also this journey about who you are and what are your strengths and how do you add value, and they might be different than what you think they are. And so this question's awesome because I didn't think of myself, I didn't see myself being able to do that. I felt like because of where I was in my career, that maybe it had passed. And although I had alluded that I'd like to start a company, I didn't know how real, that was just a dream maybe. But then realizing and talking with classmates and being around these people, and again, learning not the quantitative part, but the qualitative part around, not the hard math, the soft math, the people skills, the negotiation skills, the using a framework, but then like subtly working it into a conversation and leading things, leading an organization, those things. I guess I realized more and more that, like, hey, I am capable of doing these things. I do actually have these strengths, and other people have started companies that maybe didn't even have these strengths, and they succeeded. So surely I could do that. So for me, it was I'm a problem solver by trade, and what I really felt like the big thing I learned was that truly is a skill of, like, being able to see complex problems and apply in quickly different frameworks to find a path to a solution is something I'm really good at. And so when you look at that and then say, hey, I want to start a company, well, that's awesome. Now I can look at a bunch of problems and say, well, which ones could I solve? Do I have the right resources? And, all the variables I can solve for has a high likelihood to succeed. So I think the big one for me was truly just the soft skills mattered more than I even thought they did, and that I actually had capability in that space that maybe I didn't know I had.
Yeah, that's great. And, I think too, I think when you're in a cohort, we are starting to put together the cohort now, right? Decisions will be released later this week. We continue to have interviews coming up. You just never know sort of where your path is going to go. So I think that's something else that I like to remind people. You might have this idea in your head of what you want out of the program, and you definitely should have that, right? You should 1000% know your why, right? Not just why MIT, but why this program for you at the end of the day. But I also having that openness to realize that, hey, like, you might meet someone that inspires a conversation around a startup, or maybe not. Like, I recently had dinner with a current student who's currently in their first year, and they were talking about how, starting a company was never something that they thought they would do, but being in, some of these classes, getting to meet different people. Specifically, this person was in intro to disciplined entrepreneurship. That was one of the executive electives. I actually sat in on the second day of that. It really allowed them to think more broadly about how they could leverage this network, and leverage the learnings, where they're now starting to think a little bit more seriously, right, about something that was never on the table before coming here. And I think allowing yourself to maybe dream a little bit bigger than you normally do, is
Yeah.
really critical.
Yeah. No, I think that's Chrissy. I think that's huge. So one of the things that has changed since I was in the program is obviously this explosion around AI. And
Mhm.
even how we would start a company, how you all will start a company is different than how I did it because of AI. And so
Mhm.
there's a whole bunch of problems where AI can solve X, Y, and Z. But again, going back to the learning, you're going in. We've all been part of a company where they brought in one of the really big consulting firms, and they have some framework that da 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 da. And it's like you're going above that and actually learning the theory and the academic science, or the science behind some of these frameworks and these problems, and how you're going to apply them in this larger context, right? So similarly with the whole AI thing and the course material, it's like, yeah, there's a piece of this that the math can be solved or AI can generate X or Y or Z, but putting that all together is about the lessons and the life things that we've learned and the frameworks. Like it's a collection of, sure, AI is a part of it, this training you would get from the teachers or the teaching you will get from them, plus your experience is actually what makes this so powerful.
Mhm.
And I just think that's really important to highlight because it's just been a massive. It allows you to dream bigger because a part of the variable, the AI piece, is going to solve part of that piece. Does that, you don't need, like, everyone's going to be able to say I used AI. Cool. So take that out of the equation. Everyone's got
Right.
access to it. What's the
Exactly.
next things that you have access to? Life experiences of this cohort, all these people I'm with, and some of the best academic minds out there.
Exactly. And, a little more than a year ago, we did an AMA with, a current student at the time about AI. And one of the takeaways that I recall was he was essentially was just like, this is how we're using it now. But if you're watching this not right now
Yeah,
today, that
that's
all
right.
might be, negated or different. And everything is changing so quickly and so drastically, and I think that's one of the other things. It's very exciting, but there is just a lot happening. So I think too it's being really, um how do we be intentional about like any tool, any framework that we're using? And I think just going back to the people that you will be connecting with that's in your cohort, how can you be intentional with those relationships, and with the development of anything that you're working on? Um, I do want to get to one last question from the audience. So if anyone has any other good ones, we might sneak it in. You talked about soft skills, Mick. And so how did the program help you develop your soft skills?
Oh, well, your first weekend in, your first week of school, you have Roberto, um, and it's all about the different lenses of which we have to look at solving problems and managing people. And so it's not even like you come to MIT and you think, well, the first week's going to be the quantitative. It's going to be Georgia and DMD around data, and it's not. It's around organizational processes and the different lenses that we should look at. And he's so dynamic in sharing and engaging you about these large organizational challenges and moving them or changing them and why they failed and how people learn. It just challenges you from the start of like, you want to know more, like you want to understand more about how should I approach this? How, like, I've got a problem to solve. Cool. I need to go to management. Great. How do you go about doing that? And that's where the soft skills matter, because you want to understand, well, what are their levers? What's their agenda? Where can I? And so it helps you to be so strategic in how you communicate and at what level and when, the timing, like and then it's sprinkled throughout every single class, because it's like, great, you can come up with the right answer. Cool. AI generated the right answer. The delivery of that answer and how you get that permeated throughout an organization, that's totally different. And so I just think it's throughout. In each class, I could find something where I'm like, this challenged me on kind of the quantitative side, and this challenged me on the quantitative or the qualitative side of just the soft skill side.
Yeah.
But you start it right out of the gate, unless I don't think that part has changed in terms of the curriculum.
No.
It's yeah.
Awesome. Few more questions from me. So MIT Sloan's mission is in part to develop principled, innovative leadership that improves the world. And I guess my question for you is, how do you feel that Sloan, this program, has helped develop you as a principled, innovative leader?
I think it absolutely does, because you're challenged because you're exposed to a level that maybe you haven't been before. Meaning, again, this is the source of these frameworks. This is the source of some of the largest innovations that we've ever seen have come from MIT. And so when you're in that environment, you are then challenged you want to do that as well. Like, it just kind of attaches to you of like, okay, I need to do this. Like, they show you it's possible, so I should be able to do this as well. And then the courses just reinforce that with, how do you do that? I took a class on entrepreneurship and law. It wasn't part of the EMBA curriculum, but I had access to it. And for me, it was like, this is a great way for me to learn about how, all the different legal pieces. But then when you go into, so you just there's so much at your fingertips that I think then you kind of look at it and say, okay, well, then how do I apply and how do I become this, principled leader? And I think I get a lot of inspiration from those classmates that are, whether it's trying to cure cancer, change solar power, change whatever it might be, some innovation that's beyond, something that's really at the core of humanity. And you're going to meet those people. They're in your class. And again, we kind of rally around those folks and say, can I add value? How do I add value? But if nothing else, it just inspires you to try and be better the next day and to just continue in that path. So I don't know that I felt really mushy in terms of an answer, Chrissy, but it really just kind of becomes part of who you are. I don't think there's not a test at the end of it and they grade you on if you're a principled leader and you're changing lives tomorrow. I think it just kind of becomes part of who you are, that you want to make an impact. And now you can, which I think, man, I'm highlighting so many curriculum things, but we end the program with a class about giving back and about being involved in your community, where we actually try to help local nonprofits. And so if nothing else, you go through this huge academic, this massive journey, but where it ends is also with this reminder of like, yeah, but how are you helping others? How are you changing and impacting beyond just someone's bottom line somewhere on a revenue, on some P&L? And so I think you guys just have tied it together so well that it just becomes part of who you are.
That's awesome. I love that call to our final module. So that's leading with impact, and that's in May, and that's literally right before you graduate. So yeah. Final question, I promise. Mick, what advice would you give to someone who's building someone, whether it's inside of a company or if they're creating their own, and they're considering the EMBA as their next step?
I think you have to go for it. I think there was a moment where I definitely hesitated and I doubted. I thought, there's no way, there's no chance. Like, looking at the applicant pool, and don't get me wrong, I ended up in a class with brain surgeons and the head of, the head of neurosurgery at some major institutions. There are brilliant people that I felt like, why, if you're getting folks like that, why should I even attempt to do it? And I think, well, for me, the advice is like, you've just got to go for it. Why not? Like, sure, the worst case is that you don't make it this time. I actually met a couple that had applied, this wasn't their first go round to get in, that ultimately they were a fit. And I think you just have to go for it because the outcomes are beyond worth it. Like, you're hearing me, and I wish I could tell you that there's a script behind this that Chrissy and I are following, but there really isn't. Like, this is truly just, I am very passionate about it because it was a very life-changing experience for me. And to me, that is worth it, right? It is worth it might not make it, or I might not get in, because the upside is, if you're in, it's life-changing. It truly is. And I mean that both professionally and personally.
Mick, thank you so much for your time. I know that you were busy, but I always appreciate any chance that I get to connect with you, learn more from you. And so thank you so much for sharing a little bit more of your story today.
Thanks for having me. I'm a huge fan, obviously, of not just
Yeah,
the program, but you all, and I appreciate all the hard work you do. So thanks for having
likewise.
me today. Good luck to
Likewise.
everyone on the call.
Awesome. We'll chat soon. So today we explored how the MIT EMBA empowers entrepreneurial leaders, whether you're launching a new venture, scaling an existing one, or innovating within your own organization, right? Like you do not have to be an entrepreneur to get something out of this program. It's just those frameworks, right? Those skill sets, those ways of thinking that you'll further develop here. And so we hope that Mick's story helped you reflect on your own leadership and entrepreneurial journey. So what is your next inflection point? We hope that it is maybe within one of our cohorts. And so we hope to see you at a future event. Our application deadlines are listed online. We do have one coming up this Thursday. A reminder that all applications are due by 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time. That's for all of our friends not on the East Coast. You can also find any upcoming in-person or virtual events on our admissions event page. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back in a few months with another LinkedIn Live on AMA, but we do still have other programming in between. Hope to see you then. Thanks.